It's finally spring. This season brings the welcome promise of warmth after a long and cold upstate New York winter. But when I look around, it can still feel a little barren and lifeless. We often attribute death to autumn, but I find that the emptiness in the landscape after the snow melts can actually feel more bleak than fall's dying leaves. Nevertheless, when the weather begins to warm, I look forward to getting outside. The sun is starting to uncover the little bits of life that never left, like mushrooms and moss. The springs and snowmelt move through the nearby wetlands to feed clear, cool water into the stream that meanders towards the pond. This is one of my favorite places to spend time, and I can never resist dipping my hand into the water, no matter how cold I know it'll be. I noticed that without the distraction of the leaves, the grandeur of the maple and cherry trees is on full display, and the temporarily open canopy lets in the warm sun while I commune with these elders of mine. Dry stalks stand as remnants of last season before they push their life force into the seeds that will bring forth new life in one way or another, whether as a seedling or as food for a bird or cricket or chipmunk or mouse. And the stalks will slowly decay, feeding the soil below that once nourished them, kindly returning the favor in a final act of gratitude. Slowly I see it's not so barren here after all. Like the pond that sits practically motionless without frogs jumping or dragonflies diving for a drink or fish lurking near the surface for unsuspecting insects that dare dance atop it, if not for a breeze, the water appears still and vacant. At the pond's edge, however, I see all the signs of life. A fallen, rotting tree limb in a life cycle of its own has become a favorite for turtles. Where a baby snapping turtle suns himself today, I may see a red-eared slider tomorrow. And when I get even closer, soon-to-be frogs, currently in their froglet stage, are everywhere, and they are a joy to observe. My first walk in the woods and around the pond every spring reminds me how laughable it is that I ever dared call the spring landscape barren. Instead, I'm instilled with a deep gratitude to have a unique season that calls us in close and astounds us with all the life there actually is. Spring reminds me to see the beauty in the life to come and in the death that brings life forth. It's all life, just in different but deeply intertwined stages. Death is something I think about often. I went through a bit of a reckoning back in my 20s when several people in my life died seemingly back to back over a relatively short period of time. The last of those deaths was my mother's, and it hit me hardest. It took a lot to work through the grief, especially in a culture that relegates death and mourning to the dark corners of an individual's life, instead of treating it as the collective loss and experience that it actually is. So I was thrust into deep and difficult internal work because I knew I had to understand what I was experiencing in order to move through it. This turned into years of examining the very natural and inevitable life event that death is. And at some point along this journey, everything changed. My mom's death was the worst and the best thing that ever happened to me. It imbued me with a greater awareness of how I spend my life. I questioned my time on this earth and began to interrogate how modern humans spend our lives. I came to embrace my own mortality. My life is so precious because it's going to end and because I have no idea when. And truthfully, at first this realization made it harder to find the will to go on, at least within the confines of modern society and its many expectations that were starting to make less and less sense to me. Working and stressing to buy not the luxuries in life, but the necessities for survival, even though they are actually free and all around us and abundant. It no longer felt right or even normal to spend my one precious life this way, and I was no longer willing to. Sometimes we have to bury our old lives to begin anew, just like our friend Spring teaches us. I'm treating the one life I get in this body like I know it's going to die and decay. And at the end, if I'm lucky, the life I lived will be nourishment for another's.